So, welcome to this episode of AI for Associations. Today, I'm here with my good friend Travis Voss, who's the Director of Innovative Technology and Fabrication at SMACNA. Hey, Travis, glad to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Hugh. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, you guys had the good sense to start an AI leadership program where you were thinking about this is moving quickly and we need to get some resources in place. I wanted to start there because I think a lot of associations are here also at some part of their journey, and you're ahead of some and some others are ahead. What kind of got you to making the decision, well over a year ago that so this would have been, the beginning of 2024 that you guys were getting
Mhm.
serious about this? What got you to that stage thinking this is important enough for us to allocate time and some resources?
Well, I had started, so this is my second year here, and I had been brought in to further clarify our focus on the technology sector inside of construction. And around that same time, we're an association, we're member-led, member-driven. Um, And around that time that you're highlighting there, some of our board of directors were starting to hear about all this AI that's out there and in kind of the public marketplace, and then starting to see it come into some of the technology stacks and some of the offerings that they're talking about. So it really kind of stemmed from that. The board of directors coming to SMACNA leadership and saying we should probably have something for our members, something available for our members along this line. And again, in typical association fashion, we created a task force or committee to start figuring out how we wanted to address this.
You guys already had some technology. I mean, it's what you got hired into, right? You already
Mhm.
had a technology committee. Did it fold into that? And it was like, okay, this is going to be part of what you guys do, and maybe it's a subset, but it sounds like it folded into a way of thinking already.
It folded into a way of thinking, and kind of the way that we approached it is it was specialized enough to warrant its own focus.
Mhm.
So our committee kind of draws from it has a handful of members from our construction technology committee as well, but also drew in members from education side, members from our business management side, because it does, you know and we've talked about this several times in our own webinars that we've had with you. Like it's more than just a technology. It's like almost like a digital assistant in it. So it doesn't really just pigeonhole itself as a technology role.
So that's really cool. There's two things to tease out of that. The first one that is really interesting, going back to the origin, is there's a couple ways you could imagine a association would decide to invest and really get into this. One of them is leadership led. One of them would be from, people inside your group, and the other one would be member led. And I think you guys were earlier than would have been true if it was member led. It just members, I'm sure you'd heard some conversations, but it wasn't quite where it probably is now. So it's really interesting that it was leadership vision, board leadership vision
Mhm.
that led to it. Really interesting. And do you, just knowing what you know, do you feel like that winds up being a little easier when not easier, but it's just a more, it's a cleaner process when it's coming from leadership because it's like, okay, we kind of know what we want to do. Go figure it out.
Yeah, I would say that probably is true. Like a lot of technology adoption, some or pushes within companies, it can be the path is a little more clear when it's top down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Grassroots is still important. You got to have buy-in from there, but I do think that in the way that the association is structured, it does make it easier where we serve at the pleasure of the committees and the board. So when those people, the ones that are speaking up and saying, I think this is important for our membership, we're like, all right, put some budget to it and let us go figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah, I know that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, if it's coming from someone's vision as opposed to, conversations in hallways at a
Hmm. Hmm.
conference, it's a little easier to know, okay, well, we kind of know what we want to do, and then we'll figure it out as we move along.
Right.
Is it your guess, not that I don't know if you've had this conversation, that the board members that came to you had been hearing it from members, or do you think they've just been hearing about it in the world and they're like, look, our job is to look 2, 3 years out, and I think this is coming.
I think it's a little bit of both. Most of those people on the board they're leveled up inside of their own companies. So they're seeing their landscape change within their own companies or within the construction in general. Um, but then just, being aware of it. Obviously, it's been hot button issue for, I mean, yeah, we started in 2024, but it's been kind of pretty loud for the last 3 or 4 years.
Right, right. You mentioned something else that I really liked is when you thought to put together the AI committee, you didn't just have people that are kind of nerdy about tech, but actually you thoughtfully put together a broader group because you were presumably were thinking this is going to apply, well, you kind of said it, like this is going to apply more widely than people that are, the early adopters of technology. How'd that go?
It went really well, and it highlighted a lot of things that maybe we hadn't initially thought of, where you're kind of thinking, okay, how's this going to affect our workflows? How's this going to affect, um, just, again, kind of the way that the businesses are doing work. But as an association, as you know, we're a little bit different than some of the other ones. We're also standards producers and standards providers, and that brought in that whole mindset around, okay, how do we protect our IP? How do we help our members leverage our IP better? And not even members, just members, but not members, because being a standards body, we can't restrict all of that just to our own membership. And there's multiple times, I'm sure many of other construction companies have seen SMAC, as per SMACNA standards. Well,
Right.
that comes with a little bit of a different mindset about the way that we're leveraging and protecting our IP, but it is still important that we do it, and again that we provide, an association. Okay, what other tools could come out of that we can provide and serve our membership better?
And I think related to that, one of the things I remember is we did a briefing about agents, I think it was.
Mhm.
And one of the members who clearly is not, waking up in the morning and thinking about what technology he can use was really helpfully challenging, almost like a devil's advocate. And I think that's another point, right? Is that
Mhm.
people who aren't bought into this are going to make you slow down and explain it better. And that actually is what wound up happening is there were some really interesting questions about, okay, tell me, I get what those words mean, but what do you mean? And I think there's
Right.
real value when people talk about having diversity in a committee or in a group, they don't always say why. And I thought that was such a good example of why, because he was not taking anything for granted. He was like, okay, I signed up for this thing, but tell me what you're talking about. And I think everybody
Yeah.
got a lot out of what resulted from that conversation.
Definitely agree. I definitely agree with that. And we tongue in cheek and poke fun at those people that we have inside of our companies or we know throughout industry that, can be the curmudgeon or the grumpy old foreman that's never going to use technology. But um, AI is no different in any other sort of deployment that you're doing. You need those people that, like you said, are gonna poke some holes, gonna point out the warts and kind of force you to slow down and be a little bit more thoughtful about how you're explaining things, how you're changing things, what processes that you're putting in place.
Yeah, and that wound up happening. So as you
Mhm.
think about how it's rolled out, what are you finding members are engaging with? Like we've done some things, we've done some webinars, we've done some papers, we've done some of this and that.
Mhm.
What's winding up helping? Like, what are you seeing that people are engaging?
The biggest engagement we're getting right now is from webinars, and those have kind of dovetailed into some other opportunities where we get a little bit more one-on-one with the members. It's hard in a webinar to get really down into the nitty gritty, but I do think that you've done a pretty good job of, um, kind of big topic. Here's where we are, and then we're just going to open up, ChatGPT usually, and be like, okay, here's how you do it. And then it has turned into at least one occasion, if not two, where a member has come in and said, hey, look at the thing that I did,
Yeah,
right? And then we have them kind of present. So anywhere where you can give your members, not just this is what the thing is, but here's how you can use it. I think that's been very beneficial. Um, the stuff we talked about agents and connecting to, um, you just email and calendars. I know a lot of people have engaged with that stuff and kind of, truly started to create their own kind of digital assistants.
You know what's cool is that if you think about the role of an association, I've heard it described once as that associations sit between an industry and the market, and whether the market's the government, which it
Mm,
isn't, but you know what I mean. It's what's out there that they have to deal with to help to translate and kind of make it useful and navigate. And one of the things that came out of some of the conversations you're talking about that I think is interesting is the real value is when the creativity and experience of the members themselves is empowered to figure stuff out, right? Like
right,
we had this one guy, right, who he used ChatGPT to figure out how to use Excel so that they can use their timesheets better. Because,
right.
sheets can get a little bit big.
Yep,
You got 40 people and you've got 4 weeks, right? You got a
right.
lot to look at, especially if it's hour by hour. So just figuring out what cell they were clicking on. And that's the kind of thing that like you wouldn't know from the outside is a blocker and is a pain in the neck. So I think that one, if you think about where AI, certainly as the tools are now, can help and where an association I think can help is yes, reducing some anxiety and saying, yeah, this isn't going to take your job and so on, but also
Right.
here's some ways you guys can take these tools and really get into the weeds and make your jobs better. Like the little blockers that drive people nuts. What can we maybe get rid of some of those?
Yeah, yeah, you're right on there. As I see our role as, as an association is to improve the market share in business of our members. And so like you're pointing out, if we can give them little tools that are differentiators in their business or puts them a little bit ahead of the current marketplace, we're doing our jobs.
Yeah, love it. So when you think about AI, where it's going, right? And obviously that's a bit of an open question, but let's just assume that it's going to get better. General AI isn't really relevant, certainly for a conversation we're going to have, but it's going to keep getting better and it's going to be in more tools and all that. What do you think is something that associations might think about over the next, let's call it year?
Um, that's a good question. Um, as far from an association base, I think kind of more of those virtual assistants, those tools that help enable connecting your members with the association specific information, whether it's standards bodies or manuals or whatever the association puts out. I do think that getting beyond simple search, actually answering questions, highlighting one of the things that in my own use of it that it tends to do is it brings up information that I hadn't probably thought about. It's kind of a tangential type thing that ends up being important. I think that from an association standpoint, you're going to have, you know, in it's going to be more than just, a chat bot, right? It's going to be that helper in your website that really connects all that information together. Um, and then I think that as your members use tools that are connected to their industry, you'll see those related back inside of your association because you're going to have to provide education um, and insight into how those tools are going to affect their business, and you can't help but figure out a way to during your education loop that back in. Um, I guess I can't really think of anything offhand, but some of the applications and stuff that we build internally to support our members' businesses, I can see them connecting up and being provided through another third-party software that has some sort of licensure, just trying to randomly throw some things together there.
I love the direction you went in because if you think about, especially an organization like SMACNA, to your point, there's manuals, there's how-tos, there's standards, and there's a big membership that has solved an awful lot of problems. So there's a ton of knowledge that you're in the center of, right as the industry is grappling with a shrinking workforce and
Mhm.
aging out, where all the things you hear over and over again. The idea that AI can make some of that stuff more accessible when people need it. Because having to go look up a PDF is just a blocker. Like I wish I could,
Right,
but I can't right now, or I'm not in front of something. So having AI be I don't know, marketplace isn't the right word, but maybe connector between some of the knowledge that SMACNA either coordinates, creates, or just houses, and people when they need it is a really interesting vision. And I think that it's something that a lot of associations are in a position to do something about, right? Is to take this data and information, really more information, knowledge, whatever it is. Like, how many times have you seen on message boards where somebody asks a question and someone says, well, here's how I did it? Like some
Right.
association, that's a really big part of their value, others a little less so. But there's a lot of knowledge not locked up in there that can be, you'd never hire a human to go and do something with that. But having
Right.
AI crawl it, do some indexing, and then make it available is, I think, an enormous opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you hit it with the shrinking workforce and um, the need in I've said it a lot recently where AI is more of a human augmenter, right? So the shrinking workforce, the need to get things done faster, still the always the need of the human being involved in providing context and detail, but we've seen it in our manuals where a lot of our manuals, we publish these papers and they're 30, 35 pages. We've already started to break those down to like executive summaries and kind of a one pager that's important. And AI gives us the opportunity to take that even deeper. Like we're instead of just saying, on this topic, here's the whatever 15 key points and then links into where you can read more detail. Like AI gives you the specific answer for the specific question that you have that you're trying to deal with that right now. Because if you're a project manager that is trying to get or an estimator that's trying to get a bid out the door and you're not sure on, the specifications of, whatever system that you're building out, you can get a specific answer. Now we'll provide the additional detail and all the background to that. But at that moment, that person just needs that answer and probably a little bit more context than you would get from like a simple search or to your point, leafing through PDFs for an hour. They want an answer right now. And then maybe later they go back and they kind of read up on, if their question was more about a business process or, a contract method or something like that.
Yeah, I love that. And your point about an estimator is a great example. Is if you lower the barrier to find things, the likelihood that people will check more things is higher because they have
Mhm.
the time they have, and they're going to
Right.
make a decision about whether they've got time to double check something. And if you've made it super easy, they're much more likely to than it'll fit in their time budget in a
Sure.
way that it
Right.
might not have if they were just flipping through PDFs.
Definitely.
Awesome. Hey, this is a really good start. I'd love to do this again, but I think just giving people a little bit of background on how you were thinking as SMACNA and you personally about standing up a committee and thinking about AI as a priority and then how you've seen value in it has been really valuable. So thank you.
No, thank you. This has been great. Happy to help.